Open our hearts, our minds, and our ears. Let us hear, understand, and truly receive what you'll say to us now. Amen. So there's a scripture lesson that's in the Old Testament. You can be seated. It's not a gospel reading, but it's Genesis chapter number 50. And I'm going to read just one verse, but I got to go back and fix that because there's more to it than that. So chapter 50, verse number 20 declares, "You intended to harm me, but God intended it for good to accomplish what is now being done, the saving of many lives." The word of God for us, the people of God, and we say. So I want to offer a word of encouragement today by simply saying your problem can become your blessing. Your problem can really become your blessing. And I'm going to get into just a minute how it is that God uses our problems to become our blessings. But I got to give you a little backdrop so it'll make sense. So this is a story, man. Talk about family relations and crazy stuff that go on in families. You know, it's nothing new. Anything I hear today is nothing new because I've heard it before. Can I just tell you that haters existed even in the Bible days? Y'all know what haters are, right? Haters are those folk who look at you and they're jealous just because you look good. You didn't make yourself. God made you that way. Haters are those who look at you and just because you're taller than they are, they hate on you. You know, haters are those who look at you and whatever it is, they're jealous of something about you. Now, I'm used to having haters be a part of the story, but it becomes really interesting when the haters are family members. So let me walk through this story. I gotta get through it. Joseph was hated by his brothers because the father made the mistake of telling them that he was his favorite. Now, parents, we all know that there are favorites. I mean, but you can't tell them. You just have to treat them all the same because talk about sibling rivalry. Oh my God. But it was in the Bible days. I got to fast forward because I got to make some points, but I got to give you the story. They were so angry until they were off one day hunting and they decided, all the brothers got together and they plotted to kill him. One of the brothers raised up and said, no, let's not kill him. Let's just sell him. And so a group of Egyptians came along and they sold Joseph into slavery and went back and told his dad that an animal had killed him. Well, Joseph ended up in Egypt at Potiphar's house. Potiphar was one of Pharaoh's officials. And here's the thing I need you to get all along the way. Read this story for yourself, but let me tell you the underlying line that keeps showing up. God was with Joseph. God was on Joseph's side. And so what do we find? Joseph, even though he was hated by his brothers, he was sold into slavery. He ended up at Potiphar's house, one of Pharaoh's officers, and Joseph found favor with Potiphar. Let me tell you something. When you go into a place and people treat you like they know you even though they don't, when people treat you like they like you even though they really don't know you and they're really genuine about it, don't take that personal because it really has little to do with you and more to do with the God that's in you. I wish 20 years earlier in my ministry I had been told that all these ladies that were smiling at me weren't really smiling at me because they thought I was cute. I didn't try to date them all. I just walked around feeling good about myself, I'm the most popular guy. But I woke up one day and realized, Riley, and you need to get this, there's a God in you that's attractive. There's a God in you that is so genuine that people will see it and they're drawn to it. That's Joseph's story all the way through. Joseph, not only was he favored by God, but guess what? He was handsome. So what happens when you look good? Potiphar's wife hit on him. Come on. It's nothing new. Potiphar's wife wanted to sleep with him, but because Joseph understood that he was blessed by God and there were some things he couldn't do, no, he said, no. So the wife set him up, lied on him, told his Potiphar that he had tried to attack her and tried to have his way with her, and the husband believed. The husband believed the wife, and she ended up having him thrown in prison. So now Joseph is now in prison, but what's the underlying factor here? The Lord was with Joseph. The warden in the prison found favor with Joseph, put him in charge. He was in good shape. All of a sudden, a couple of other people got in trouble with Potiphar and Pharaoh, like the cupbearer and the baker. They ended up in prison because they had dreams that they couldn't interpret. Joseph said, "Wait a minute, God is the interpreter of dreams. I'll work that out for you." Joseph interpreted the dream, in good shape with the jailer, got released. 2 years later, Pharaoh had a dream. Pharaoh goes to Potiphar and says, "Get somebody to fix this for me." None of Pharaoh's men could. Joseph ended up interpreting Pharaoh's dream. Now, Pharaoh's dream had to do with famine, and it had to do with plenty. And so Joseph interpreted the dream. At the end of Joseph interpreting Pharaoh's dream, he was 30 years old, and Pharaoh put him in charge of the entire territory. He was in charge of he was in an Egyptian place, but he was in charge of everything. And just like he said, famine broke out. But before the famine came, there was lots. While there was plenty, Joseph was smart. He managed, he saved. And so there was a famine throughout all the land. Now, what do you think happened to the brothers who sold Joseph into slavery? They heard that in Egypt, where Pharaoh and Potiphar was, there were grain. They didn't know their brother was in charge. So they come in and they get their stuff. He hides from them the first time. Give them what they need and they go on their way. He comes back a second time. And they look at him and they're nervous. And Ron, they should be, because they sold him into slavery. But long story made short, I'm going to make a few points. Joseph looks at them and say, "Don't be nervous. What you intended for my bad, God is using for my good." Somebody needs to hear that no matter where you are in life, no matter where you are in your story and your faith journey, God has a plan that only involves you winning. Now, it may appear to some that you're losing, but God has a plan that only involves you winning. So you've got to remember to trust God in spite of the circumstance. You've got to remember to trust God in spite of what's going on. And listen, let me tell you something. Sometimes this stuff is not imagined. Somebody in the room other than me know hell is real. And it's here on earth. There are times when you find yourself in a situation that has nothing to do with you and your making, and you are in a living hell. That's real. You don't have to deny it. But how you handle it becomes the issue. And I'm convinced that God will always make us victorious if we trust him. Let me see if I can't get through this. If I can, I'll be back next week. So one of the ways that God uses our problems in our situation is he uses our problems to direct us. Sometimes our problems motivate us to change, which requires us to look in new directions. Sometimes our problems will allow us to see things that we would otherwise not have seen. It was God's design to lead Joseph to Egypt. But he had a plan down the road that Joseph didn't see right away. But he moved him and he set him up. I am convinced that 20 years ago, ever how long it's been, when God introduced me to Jerry and Joey, it was a setup. I mean, think about it. How crazy is this, huh? Except it's a setup. Sometimes he'll direct our paths. And what we've got to do is we've got to know that it's not important that we see the end. See, that's the problem with young people now, and sometimes even the elders. We want to know what the end is going to be. Well, don't worry about the end, because if you could see the end, then it wouldn't require you to have faith. Faith requires you to walk as if you know the end, but you walking by faith and not by sight. But if God is directing you, I told some people the other day, it messed my mom up. Maybe I've told you guys. I graduated college, got a job, got me a company car, an expense account, started law school, and God said to me one day, quit playing. Just stop playing, because I've been singing since I was knee-high to a duck. You know, my cousin May is here. She remembers me from way in. She's a little older than me, so she remembers me from the days, you know, her mom and my dad were sisters and brothers, and they were one of the few families on my dad's side that we enjoyed visiting. They were some of the sane folk. There were some other folk in my daddy's family that were crazy. We didn't, you know, but I've been singing for a long time, Julian, and here's the thing, you know, I got this company car, I got this good job, all this stuff was working for me, and it was a wonderful life, and God said, quit playing. I said, God, what you want me to do? He said, I want you to quit your job. I want you to move to Atlanta, and I want you to get into seminary and do it full time. Alex, I quit my job. Called my mama up and said, Mama, guess what? You know, I'd already been preaching, Miss Renee, you know, but I had been doing what I call a little bootleg preaching. I was working a full-time job and preaching on the side. You know, it wasn't my main gig. And that's why God said, quit playing. So I called my mama and said, Mama, I'm going to seminary. And it was another one of them times where I just, you know, Drew, she went in her closet, bless her heart. I put my mom in her closet a bunch of days. She said, Lord, I don't know what you're doing with my boy, but just hold him. Because I told her, I said, I'm going to quit my job. I'm going to leave Houston, and I'm moving to Atlanta, and I'm going to seminary. Now, fast forward, I promise y'all, I went, and I didn't have no job. I did not have but the money I had in the bank, which wasn't a lot. I did not have anywhere to stay, and I really wasn't sure how I was going to pay for seminary. But because when God says do it, you do it, I promise you, he had a senior pastor at a large black church that had just gotten started and was looking for a student minister. He had another friend of mine who had just been appointed to the seminary that I was attending. The two of them connected and decided they wanted to bless me. And can I tell you, 3 years into seminary, out, debt-free, no money owed, seminary, master's of divinity degree, and the rest is history. When God directs you, you can't worry about the end. You got to know that God is directing. Sometimes God will use our problems not only to direct us, but to inspect us. Now, some of us don't like being inspected because what happens is the real us show up. You know, it's been said that people are a lot like tea bags. If you really want to know what's inside them, drop them in hot water. And whatever's in you will come out. Sometimes the real you has to come out. And here's the thing. The sooner you become real with your real you, the sooner you can get control over that, get deliverance from that if it's not what God wants you to be, and be okay. But our problems will inspect us. Now, I got to tell you that I am so proud of myself, and maybe I'm being a little more boastful than I need to be, but I just got to keep it as real as I can and say that I had a really, really difficult inspection to happen, Pam, around my last year or year and a half in Atlanta. Because I was served a load of crap by a group of church folk. And at the end of the day, there was a part of me that wanted to crap back. And I knew how, because I had learned it. But I had buried my mama, I had buried my grandfather, I had buried my grandmother, and I was married to Miss Do Right. Always wanted to do the right thing. Karen. And so, Nathan, I had to decide if I was going to revert back to who I used to be or if I was really going to own who I am now. And thank God I decided to keep who I am now, and that's where I landed. That's where I landed And let me just tell you, it was a good thing because I did not fight. I didn't cuss nor cut. Nobody. Because I realized that I was still under the authority of the God who had told me, go and I'll go with you. He was still with me. And so here's what happens. When trouble comes and you begin to act like you're in trouble, then you're really not trusting God. See, the problem the devil had with me is that even though it looked bad, I kept celebrating. The problem that the devil had with me is even though he kicked me in my butt and gave me a bunch of crap, I kept dancing and I kept singing and I kept celebrating. And it was like, what's wrong with this boy? But what was in me was praise. What was in me was thanksgiving. God had done too much. God had been too faithful. God had shown up too many times for me to all of a sudden get into a desperate place because people in a certain place had a way of dealing with me that did not make sense. I promise you, I stood on what I knew to be true. And what came out of my mouth and what came out of my lips was praise. He directs, he inspects, he corrects. He corrects. Sometimes the only way you learn a lesson is through personal pain and failure. Learning happens through experiences. Children who touch hot stoves don't have to be told that stove is hot because they get it. Sometimes God will give us just enough of an experience so that we appreciate what's going on when that experience is no longer there. And sometimes all you got to do is one. Now, I hope my young people in the room today don't have to make the same. Please, if you're going to bump your head, choose a different wall every time you bump it. And you may get several bumps along the way, but learn from every bump. That's what God intends for. He's not going to destroy you. He's not going to let you be destroyed. But you got to learn from every bump. Every bump, Mama Jan, is a lesson opportunity. But there are things that God wants us to fix about ourselves. There are things that God wants us to let him fix about ourselves. And sometimes the right situation just sets it up and turns you and corrects you. Experience is a great teacher. Not only does he direct, inspect, and correct, but sometimes God uses our problems to protect us. I had to wake up one day and realize that I'm serving God and not the church. Hello, somebody. The Methodist Church is the institution by which God chooses to have us serve. But if the Methodist Church was closed today, I'd still wake up tomorrow with a job. Because I serve the God who has called me. And here's what happens. Sometimes God will allow situations to take place so that he can protect us. Now, here's the thing. Joseph's brothers really wanted him out of the picture. They wanted him dead. Now, you may not believe this, but I am convinced that when there is enough envy, when there is enough rage, when there is enough jealousy in the room, sometimes the only thing you can do is to get away from it. So what am I saying, Heather? I'm convinced that God knew that Joseph was going to be better off in an Egyptian home with a group of people who knew nothing about him than he was in his own house. Why? Because this is the place that he would be loved. This is the place he will be appreciated. This is the place he will be protected. Oh, somebody ought to get this because God got you in a crazy place and you don't understand it because the place you thought you'd be in didn't work out. The place you thought you'd be in has been shut down, and yet where you are seems to be all right, and it seems to be the right thing. Why? Because God has a way of taking those situations and using them to protect you. Be careful what you ask for, because sometimes in God's grace, he'll give it to you. Then you end up getting what you asked for and it ain't what you want. He protects us. He corrects us. He inspects us. He directs us. But here's the thing that I like, and I'm going to be done. He uses our problems to perfect us. Julian, you're smarter now than you were at 12 years old. You're in Mary's house. You don't have a choice. But you're smart anyway because you want to do the right thing. And here's what I want you to get. Every lesson is designed to build character. Every problem is designed to increase your faith. Every situation is designed to assure you that though you don't have it all together, you serve a God that does. Every problem is designed to say to the world, when the world knocks you down, he can pick you up. Every problem is designed to say to a world that doesn't understand that when this whole world says no, God can still say yes. But you've got to move in a direction that says, I'm better now. I'm stronger now. I'm wiser now. I don't have to fight I used to hear the old people say over and over again, Nora, if you just be still, the Lord will fight your battle. Well, there were times when I didn't give God time because I fought for him. But I've learned now if I just be still, not only will God fix me, but he'll fix the situation that's surrounding me. Problems are many times God's opportunity to bless you. But you got to see it that way. You got to know that there is nothing that can separate you and there is nothing that can cause you to be rejected. So you rejoice in your suffering, knowing that suffering produces endurance and endurance produces character and character produces hope. And hope does not disappoint because God's love that has been poured into our hearts through the Holy Spirit is given to us. God is at work in our lives even when we don't understand. We've got to trust him enough to know that if he brings you to it, he'll certainly see you through it. I got a quick story and I got to quit. Keep coming, Dan. Keep coming. You may have heard the story of a farmer who had a mule. It was an old mule that he loved dearly, and Don, this old mule had been good to him. While the farmer was out one day, the old mule got in trouble and he fell into a well in the back of the farmer's house. The farmer comes back and finds that the mule is in the well, Megan, and he looks and says, oh my God, it's a great mule. He's been fun to, I can't just let him suffer, so maybe I need to give him a decent burial. Oh, and so he went and got his shovel and he began to shovel dirt, and he would throw dirt in, and he shoveled dirt, very saddened as he throwing dirt in, and he shoveled dirt. And all of a sudden, he heard something going on down in the well. And when he looked over, instead of seeing a mule that was buried in dirt, what he saw was a mule that had decided that in spite of my circumstance, I'm not going to give up. And every time that old farmer would throw some dirt on the back of that old mule, you know what he'd do? He'd shake it off and pack it under his feet. He'd shake it off and pack it under. You know what happened, don't you? Eventually, Elizabeth, enough dirt was thrown on that old mule's back that he had packed under his feet until what? He was able to step out the well. Oh, somebody ought to be excited. Somebody ought to be excited about the fact that it doesn't matter how far you fall. It doesn't matter how bad it looks. You can trust God to bring you through. You just got to know that your problems are opportunities for faith development. Your problems are opportunities to trust God more and watch God turn your test into a testimony. In the name of the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit, I let the church say, amen and thank God. Amen.